Welcome to today's episode of Print to Pixel, the podcast where we talk to marketing leaders and technologists about how omnichannel marketing is revolutionizing the way direct mail and digital marketing are used together. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm the CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation platform that makes direct mail marketing as easy as email. I'm excited today to introduce Erik Tomalis. Erik Tomalis is the Chief Evangelist and Director of Business Development at Virtuous, a nonprofit CRM and marketing automation platform helping to build better donor relationships. Erik is a proven fundraising professional with over 20 years of professional fundraising experience. He's made over 4,000 face-to-face donor solicitations where he's raised millions of dollars for many nonprofit organizations, including healthcare, education, human services, Greek life, athletics, and youth-based organizations. Erik, welcome to Print to Pixel.
Hey, Dennis, how are you? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
We're super excited to have you as well. Psyched to connect with you and with Virtuous, a great company that is doing great work in the nonprofit space. Before we get started, why don't we get into how you arrived here? Tell us the Erik story, your career, how it evolved to having you land at Virtuous and what you're doing at Virtuous.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm grateful for being here. Grateful for being with Virtuous. I think we're doing some amazing things for the nonprofit sector. But at the end of the day, a little bit about me is I always like to refer or share the idea of I am a recovering fundraiser. And so I grew into the nonprofit space. I spent the last 20 some years on the front lines, raising dollars for worthy causes. And I value the work our nonprofit leaders are doing on a regular basis. But even when you talked about the intro, the idea of me making all of those donor visits, sitting knee to knee with individuals, the thing that fills my cup on a regular basis is connecting a donor that wants to support an organization with a cause they care deeply about and taking the organization and connecting the two and having that little firecracker in the middle. And like one of my favorite moments from like being a frontline fundraiser is the walk from an individual's office to the elevator. Like they're chasing you out the door of just gratitude, of just saying thank you for coming and asking me for money for this organization that they care, right? And it's the same route of how I've made my journey here to Virtuous, where I'm all about this idea of human connection and kindness and taking care of our community. And as we talked about earlier, I'm a kid from Pittsburgh, and Mr. Rogers is my homeboy. It's all about our neighborhood and taking care of our helping others. And I remember during the pandemic, I was running a health system here in Western Pennsylvania in their foundation, and one of my closest friends reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, you should catch up with this person." And it just so happened to be Gabe Cooper, our CEO and our founder at Virtuous. And I met him for 10 or 20 minutes on a Zoom call. And I looked at him right through the Zoom and I was like, I don't know anything about technology. I know everything about nonprofit. I know all the things I don't like about technology, but I value what your direction and your leadership. And he talked to me about this idea of responsive fundraising. And I was like, I'm in. This is me. This is what I want to do. And I shout it from the rooftops to nonprofit leaders because it's the necessary methodology to help grow generosity for our organizations. And so that journey took me here, which has been exciting. So, yeah,
that's awesome. That's amazing. And so tell us, what is it that you're doing every day at Virtuous? Shouting from the rooftops, obviously, but give us a sense of what your day-to-day work looks like.
The day-to-day I have a fantastic team. If you follow me on LinkedIn or anything about like follow me anywhere else, I travel a lot. And I'm on the road a lot. I visit with nonprofit leaders. I do a lot of our speak engagements at our conferences around the United States and beyond. And I'm out there, again, shouting Virtuous from the rooftops, participating in podcasts and webinars. And I think it's because I have the background of serving in a nonprofit, serving in an agency, and now on the tech. And I'm kind of like the linguistics, if you will, translator in the middle, like understanding nonprofit leaders to be able to go back. But, what I'm really doing is fostering that first tenet to our idea of responsive fundraising is we want to listen to our nonprofits. We want to listen to what makes them move, what turns the needle. And I go back to my marketing team, say, hey, this is what we need to talk about. I go back to the sales team. This is how you do the talking about. I go back to our product team and talking about what we need to build and grow and where they're going, as well as hearing from our customers and going back to our team and saying, hey, this is what's happening on a regular basis. So it's a definite two-way conversation, being, talking to our leaders out on the road, but also, sharing internally, hey, these are the things to be able to keep Virtuous on the forefront and grow.
That's great. So it sounds like, your role is to really keep your finger on the pulse of
Very
what's
much so.
happening out there, and not only communicate things that are happening inside of Virtuous, but also, you know, getting that feedback and understanding, where things are bubbling up and what trends are happening, and distilling that back inside uh we'll call it in Virtuous speak, right? So that the technologists and the product managers and everybody can really get to
Yep.
work on things.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, I've been married. I just celebrated our 18th anniversary a couple weeks ago. We've been together 23 years, and I know the baseline of our marriage has always been about communication. And it's not easy. It's very hard, but like there's a lot of communication internally, professionally as well, to make sure that we can continue to keep going forward. So
Very cool. That's great, and congratulations on the anniversary. That's
I was
great
home for
news.
that. That was important. So
Excellent. Awesome. So then, with that in mind, and the fact that you've transitioned, from a fundraising professional to now being this evangelist for Virtuous, how are some of the smart nonprofits that you see out there leveraging CRM and marketing automation to be better fundraisers?
It's a great question, Dennis. And we're seeing it across the board, just like taking a step backwards and just looking at the analytics of the giving trends of what's going on in our industry, right? I have the opportunity to participate in the Giving Institute, and the report that came out in the summer, you saw that giving was basically flat. We see a whole host of things from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project with AFP, and you see that donors are on the decline, and you're seeing the ways are out there. And I'm a very big believer and proponent of that. We're not looking at all the data. We're not looking at GoFundMe. We're not looking at the kids knocking on the front door. We're not selling, the show and sell at the front of, Lowe's or Home Depot. Like all those things we're not counting. And I still think giving, sure, is flat. It's going down, but generosity is still on the increase. And we're still helping out our neighbor and taking care of one another. And I think those organizations that are leaning forward are trying to do things differently instead of the traditional ways we've always done it. And like and with the systems, the processes, the people, the campaigns, all those things we've always done. And we're hitting these flat numbers on a regular basis. And when I say numbers, these are humans, these are people, these are donors, these are individuals giving to our cause. And I think they, see this noise out there, right? Like you're getting 500 emails on a daily basis. They're scrolling on their phone 8 miles a day. They're being bombarded with all these noise, and they care for your nonprofit. And I think those nonprofits that are excelling can get through the noise and make it a more personalized journey and thank the right people or acknowledge their gift or show impact and appreciation. And that's where you're going to see the increase. And frankly, where it makes it easier, and the challenge as well. Nonprofits have to do it with fewer staff and fewer resources and fewer activity, right? And so that's where technology and efficiencies and processes can actually help nonprofits, bring not replacing jobs but enhancing jobs and letting automation do the things that we always would do on a regular basis, so that we can get out of the office and go knee to knee and have a conversation and shake hands and hug people and do all the things that we need to be doing, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. And, we're seeing the same thing in the market that,
that's great.
nonprofits are being tasked with doing more, right? More personalization, better outreach, more targeted personalization and fundraising, uh, with less staff,
Yeah,
right? And so how do you
yeah,
do that?
yep,
You look for manual processes, you look for semi-manual processes, you look for to implement more scalable systems. And so we're seeing the exact same thing out there. Um,
that's awesome.
and as you guys are out there in the market, um, I'm sure you see nonprofits that are thinking, okay, I've got to bite the bullet. I've got to adopt a CRM package or marketing automation package, or, I've been using this for a long time and, it's great in its day, but we got to rethink what we're doing. So we're thinking
Mhm.
about replacing, uh, what are some of the top things that nonprofits should focus on when they're adopting a platform or making a change in a platform?
No, there's so many. The list is long for that one. There's a lot of reasons to look and to grow. A couple things I will share is making sure your team is ready to buy in. I'll say that. And what I mean by that, it's like, change management is hard. Just because you're going to say, hey, I'm going to go buy a new piece of technology, it's the magic bullet, it's the end all be all, it's going to be able to fix everything. That's not entirely true, right? Because you're going to get this new technology, new system, whatever it is, and you're going to still do it the same way you've always done it. And the team has to be able to like decipher, what we did in the past is different than what we're going to do today. It's a new process, it's a new training, it's a new growth, and we need to be adaptable for it, and see the opportunity. And I think that's where the differentiator with Virtuous and what I bought into, like I said, about 3-4 years ago in that quick little conversation was there's a lot of great technology and a lot of great systems out there for nonprofits. Not everyone is built for everybody. So do your due diligence, research what is best for your organization. That's different about us is we have a methodology that's built into our technology, and that's this idea of responsive fundraising. A lot of folks can do this in their own systems, but it's like clunky and it's not really connected. But it's this main idea is we want to, listen to our donors. We want to listen to our constituents, hear what matters to them. We want to connect with them in that right mindset, connect with where our donors are, suggest that next step of what that would look like. Sometimes it's a financial ask, sometimes it's to learn more about our organization. And then finally, we want to learn from that. And those are the 4 pillars of responsive fundraising. And I relate it a lot to Netflix, and we're used to this, right? And so I think in my own household, my wife and I have one account for Netflix, and we have 2 different personas underneath it, like everyone else, right? And so I'll own up to it, and I shared a little bit about it. My wife's an interior designer, has her own business, so she has her shows that she watches. I am a Marvel comic geek. I love all the science fiction stuff. But like when I finish Stranger Things, Netflix is going to suggest another series based on my previous preferences. And I'm not going to see her shows, and she's not going to see mine. And it's the same mindset with our donors. We want to communicate to our donors differently than we would our volunteers, than the folks that are opening our marketing emails. And so I think the personalization, we want to take folks down that listen, connect, suggest, and learn journey, because we want to have that connection to nonprofits.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And as you know, we're in the direct mail automation space,
Mhm.
and direct mail has been a workhorse for nonprofits forever. But the way the direct mail has been done is pretty ugly,
Yeah.
and as a result of that, it's been very batch and blast, right?
Yeah.
And now technology can work hand in hand between marketing automation and direct mail automation to send a single piece of mail out, that is 100% personalized to a recipient,
So cool.
a donor at the exact right moment in that donor journey. And so it's such a change in thinking, from that huge batch kind of process down
Mhm.
to highly automated, individualized marketing. And it's super exciting.
Well, and
um,
I'll double click on that too, Dennis. Is like we as humans are already accepting of this, right? And so if I put something in my Target cart online, I'll get an email tomorrow saying, "Hey, did you forget something?" And I've become completely numb to it, and I've accepted it, right?
right,
But to
right,
your point, if it's on a donor journey for an organization that I want to give and I'm passionate about and everything else, and they said, "Hey, did you forget something?" They're not ungenerous; they were just busy. Like, how do
right,
we re-engage them, right? And
right,
it's like,
right,
let's figure
exactly,
that out.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if I decide, I just get too much email, I can't deal with it. It doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you,
Right.
right? It just means I can't handle any more email, you know? Uh, so, you touched on responsive, and our teams got together
Yeah.
and met you at the Bridge Nonprofit Conference down in the DC area recently, and you gave a presentation called the Responsive Maturity Model:
Yeah.
5 Digital Steps to Scale Donor Engagement. I didn't get to hear it, and I know a lot of our audience didn't get to hear it either. So, give us some of the highlights of that presentation. Help us understand what you discussed.
Yeah, the maturity models are unique. They're not. What I mean by that, they're unique to nonprofit. They're heavily based inside of for-profit institutions, and a lot of folks use it as kind of like the best practices and the template to go down a journey to run your business and where you want to go. We have the 5 steps, and it's recorded. We can share it out when we share this podcast out to folks, and we have a whole ebook. It's about 50 or 60 pages long that can go deep and wide on the entire maturity model. It's really intense, and really it starts off as like the first one part is like all about the foundation of your data, right? And so to be able to have these personalized outreach that you and I are talking about, we need to have clean, healthy data inside our system. And unfortunately, 60% of nonprofits don't trust their data based on the CCS report that came out last year, right? And it's like, they're thanking me instead of my wife, even though she made a gift, but we're in the same household, right? So it's kind of right, but it's also not right. And so for our maturity model, that first step is, how do we do NCO reports? How do we do email appends? How do we have the right communication and efforts in there? How do we have a standard operating procedure so that the database administrator can have all the data at their disposal and the system and the processes to be able to do that? The next step is like, breaking down our internal silos. We share walls with our department, other departments inside our nonprofit organization, but we don't share goals and KPIs, right? And so marketing is all about the clicks and the likes and the opens and everything else, where program is all about the impact and the value, and fundraising is about the revenue and the donors. And like, we need to be alignment across all boards, right? And then it just keeps going further and further about personalization and donor journeys and impact and growth. And then it ends with our adoption of AI and different things that we can be able to enhance and not replace, and to be able to help us get to those next steps. But that's like the high level version of the maturity model. But there's a whole host of stuff that we need tactically, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds super comprehensive, and the fact that you've got a 50-page ebook and all these other resources, really, I think, shows a commitment of Virtuous
Yeah.
um, to the growth and success of the nonprofit sector. It seems to be very mission driven. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And it would be interesting. I mean, what I'll share, in the interest of all of that, it starts at the top within Virtuous. Our founder, our CEO, Gabe Cooper, he's the gentleman that wrote the maturity model. He's the gentleman who wrote the book on responsive fundraising. And then he just put out a new book called The Responsive Nonprofit. What is really cool about the origin story about Virtuous is, over 10 years ago, Gabe created this CRM inside his international relief nonprofit worldwide, and said to himself, was like, hey, I need to do better. We need to do good. We need to put this out to other nonprofits because this is really good. And you just seen where we've grown since then. So we're a
Yeah.
system built by nonprofits for nonprofits. And we have a whole host of fundraisers on our team that's looking at it from all different angles.
How cool is that? And
Mhm.
it certainly, from the outside, it certainly appears as though those statements,
Mhm.
built by nonprofits for nonprofits, it looks so clear in
Mhm.
your messaging, in the consistency, the branding that you guys are doing. As marketer, that's how I'm looking at it.
That's
Um,
awesome. I appreciate
but
that.
very
Yeah.
much, it looks all very consistent, and which is part of that message that is being preached to the nonprofits, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those departmental units have a unified message, and can't be out there competing, in the market with different messaging. So amazing. Great stuff. Well, Erik, it's really been a pleasure speaking with you today. Love learning more about what you're doing at Virtuous. and how Virtuous is really impacting the nonprofit world with the different models and responsive platforms. So it's great stuff. If our audience wants to learn more,
Yep.
how do they connect with you? How do they learn more about the various programs that you guys have developed?
Yeah, please do reach out to us through virtuous.org. That's our website. We'll be on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there as well. When we post this, I'd love to put a link in there because in the spirit of generosity, I do want to provide the ebook out for folks at no charge, as well as I have
Awesome.
2 books. I would love to send you guys, if you're interested in learning more about responsive fundraising and how you grow generosity in your organization, I'll freely share these books. I'm all about best practices. And I have, even as a nonprofit guy, I always had my books and I learned from Cy Seymour and all the guys before us. So I'd love to be able to support you guys.
Excellent. So we'll grab a link to that ebook. We'll put it in
Cool.
the show notes, and we'll put it out there on social media when we drop this episode. And audience, reach out to Erik on LinkedIn. Reach out to Virtuous at virtuous.org, and there's a host of great resources there for you. Erik, thanks again. It was great to have you on, and best of luck as you head into Q4. And I hope the Steelers are able to turn it around this year and surprise everyone.
Likewise with the Patriots. It's not easy for me to say that as a Steelers guy, but Patriots as well.
The NFL is better when the Patriots and Steelers are fighting each other, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks again, Erik.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Postalytics.